Coming up next, part two of my exclusive interview with Michael Franzese. Hey everybody, welcome to Real Mob Stories with James Proctor. Thank you for everybody that tuned in to the first part of my interview with Michael Franzese. In today's interview, we go straight into questions about Larry Champagne, where Michael shares perspectives not shared before. Then we get into several subjects, including his relationships with people such as Don King, Sammy Gravano, Gene Borrello, and Anthony Ruggiano. I'm sure you'll find out things you never knew about Michael Franzese during today's interview. Please hit the like button and consider subscribing to Real Mob Stories with James Proctor for more content like today's interview. On to our feature presentation. I know you spoke about Larry Champagne. We're not going to go through much on this. I just had one question, really. So you said that you couldn't save him, and what ended up being the reason that he got clipped?
Listen, I mean, it's offensive for me to say it, but the real reason was he was having an affair with my sister.
So they clipped him because of that, then.
Yes, yes. Just can't do that in that life. And I don't know if this was true or not, honestly, but I also heard that he was dealing a little bit drugs.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Machota put out a story that he had something to do with it. He had nothing to do with the gas business. I originally didn't even know him. He had zero involvement whatsoever. I don't know where these stories come up. Sometimes the informants, they just make things up, to
Yeah.
ingratiate. He had nothing to do with it, and that was the reason, and everybody knows that. I mean, it's
Did you? I mean, you obviously weren't happy with the guy, and so was there one person that made that decision?
I think there was more to it. Larry and I were very close. We were like brothers. And
Right.
he wanted to be under me. He also wanted to be proposed. He might have been the one exception that I would have made because we were
Yeah.
so close. There was nothing that was going to separate us. We were close no matter what. And he
Right.
really wanted that. So I probably would have I would have proposed him either way. But he wanted to be with me, and I tried to get him to me, and they wouldn't give him to me. Junior wouldn't give him to me. He wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think that there was a little bit more to it. I think that aside from him having this affair with my sister that I couldn't save him from, I think they were trying to tell me too, we're the boss here. And when
Mm-hmm.
we tell you something, this is the way it is. I can't say that as a fact, James, but I think that that's what I was thinking at the time, that there was a little bit more to it. Because I even said, listen, let me talk to my sister. They didn't want to hear from nothing, nothing at all.
Yeah. So you did not want that to happen to him. Is
Oh,
what? Yeah.
absolutely not. No, no.
Yeah. There's a
Uh,
lot of rumors and nonsense trying to say that you had it done because of what happened to your sister, and so you and I've heard you never say that. You've always said you tried to save him, and so it sounds like there were multiple reasons, and there was no way you would be able to get him out of it.
no, and as evidence to that too, my father and his father, Tony, became very, very close. I
Yeah,
introduced my father to his father, and they were very close. Now, if we would have had something to do with it, I mean, come on, because Tony was a street guy. He hears. We were
yeah,
very close with the family. It was, honestly, it's one of the real deep regrets I have in that life that I couldn't
right.
do anything for him.
And that's all I wanted to cover on that. But just two quick things on cooperation rumors. Frankie Campione, what can you say about him? Did you testify against him? I know he had three indictments against him, and so what can you say about him? He was a driver for you and your
Yeah.
father.
I did not testify against Frankie. In Frankie's own words,
Mm-hmm.
tape recording, you have Frankie on tape defending me, telling somebody else, this guy Chicky that he was talking to, said, Sonny should kill Michael and all of this kind of stuff. He was going off. And Frankie Campion, the guy I supposedly hurt, was saying, well, his exact words, who did Michael hurt? We were
Yeah.
very close. This guy was close. Even though I heard later on he kind of I don't know if he betrayed my dad. I don't know what the whole story was, but that happened way later. Frankie had three indictments, and he got a sweetheart deal, from what I heard. He took a plea. He got 3 years for three
Hmm.
separate indictments, well after I went to prison. So that's another nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
Right, and that's why I wanted to bring it up so that you could, refute that with the truth. And there's also saying that you gave some information about the Denver mob. Do you remember or recall anything about a mob family in Denver that you gave information on?
James, prior to me getting out of that life, I never was in Denver, never don't know anybody from Denver. When I heard that, I said, man, now they're really reaching. I have
Yeah.
no idea where that came from. None whatsoever. It's totally
Um,
ridiculous. Made up story from somebody. Ridiculous.
And so I know you were involved with Don King, and yeah, I mean, you spoke about him several times. And then there was something interesting. I'm wondering if have you ever had any dealings with Vince McMahon of the WWF? And the reason I'm asking is that the Genovese family had control of Madison Square Garden and the unions there, and they were supposedly extorting the McMahon family. And I wasn't sure if you knew anything about that or if you had any dealings with either Vince McMahon Sr. or Jr.
No, James, never had anything to do with them. And,
Yeah.
again, I don't know if you're going to ask about this, but it was on your prior show, tried to implicate me as an informant against Don King. Absolutely. Again, I don't know how people say things without researching. I was the target of that investigation, along with Don King and a few
Right.
others, for operation against me. And Joe Spinelli, who was the FBI agent at that time, wrote a whole article about it in Sports Illustrated magazine called Shadowboxing, which tells the whole story. They implicated me as the informant. That was so ridiculous. I was the target. And fortunately, they had 83 tape recordings on me, but they couldn't indict me. So, and that investigation fell apart. Nobody got indicted. But again, James, and these are the things that become troublesome when people just shoot from the hip, say things that aren't true, and put words out there that other people, rely on. It's just wrong.
I'm glad that you're covering these topics because, there's just of rumors that I couldn't find any evidence of it in my research. And so, I just thought, I don't know where the rumors get started, but, it's like you take elements of a situation and then somehow put you into it. So, and that's why I was wanting to know about that. So, a couple of things moving forward, so you were in that life, you got out. I know that you spent several years. You were on the public speaking circuit. You were talking to churches. You changed your life. You accepted Christ, and now all of a sudden, in COVID, you started the YouTube channel. And so, how did you make that decision to go on YouTube from what you were doing as a paid public speaker?
Well, easy. I had during COVID, I had 43 or 44 speaking dates postponed because of
Mm-hmm.
COVID, everybody else. So my team, I have a team that works with me, called me up and they said, Michael, what are you going to do? I said, nothing. I'm going to stay home. This is the first time I'm not traveling in 20 plus years. I said, it's great to be home with my wife and kids because I would travel, 40 weeks out of the year. Oh, you can't do that. You got to go on social media. And I said, I'm not going on social media. This was like in May or June of that year. And I said, I'm not doing social media. Well, they kept on me. And finally, in I think July or August of that year, I said, okay, what do you want to do? And they said, let's go on YouTube. Well, what am I going to do? Well, tell some mob stories. And that's how it happened. So I think in July or August of the pandemic, I went on and we got very fortunate in that it just blew up, as you
Mm-hmm.
can see. And it turned out being good because it obviously expanded the brand, very helpful to some other things that I'm doing. So, but that's how it came about.
Here's a question from, Angel Gotti had this question. I said I would ask that. So one of your early nemesis early on was Sammy Gravano. And so, people know you have a YouTube channel of 1.2 million. He's right around 600,000. So obviously, both of you are by far the most successful channels in the genre. And then a couple of years ago, you and Sammy go into Patrick David's Value Entertainment show on the sit down, and was well received. So anyway, with Angels doesn't understand that relationship you have with Sammy. So she wants to understand how you could be friends with Sammy when Sammy took part in the murder of a 16-year-old teenager named Alan Kaiser in 1976. And so what's upsetting to a lot of people in the genre is that Sammy blamed Alan Kaiser, the kid, for what happened, calling him a drug addict, blamed him for it. And according to Alan's family, he never apologized or reached out to the family. And so what do you want to say to Angel Gotti about your relationship with Sammy Gravano?
Sure. And yeah, it kind of started when Patrick Bet David brought us together. And if you had seen that, it kind of got a little volatile between
Yeah.
us. Yeah. But we patched it up afterwards because I said, Sammy, it's not a good look for any of us to get on YouTube because we're all on that channel now and start knocking each other and knocking this and that and that. It's not good. So we kind
Mm-hmm.
of patched things up in that regard. And you got to understand something, James. And I know a lot of people, I take heat from this, from people that, oh, you're born again until you're out again. And, you're a Christian
Right.
because, all this kind of stuff that we hear as Christians. But I am a
Yeah,
Christian.
I am
I've
too.
had, I have had many private conversations with Sammy. Sammy has opened his heart to me. We've talked about a lot of things, and I'm not one to judge his past. I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Now, initially, I had said some things about Sammy because prior to us getting together, when I spoke to my dad, because my dad and I, and by the way, I visited my dad quite often, after the fact before he passed away. There was bad word out on Sammy. So I had
Mm-hmm.
once made a statement that on John Gotti's worst day, he was a better guy than Sammy. And
Right.
when I said that, I meant it. And this was before I knew Sammy.
Mm-hmm.
Now we get to know each other a little bit. Sammy opens up to me. I get to meet his family. I get to meet his daughter, who I thought was just gave me such a great interview, was so honest and up. I really took a liking to her, as did my wife. I like Gerard, regardless of whatever anybody else thinks. And I like him a lot. I'm not looking at his past to judge him. I'm not saying what he did was right or wrong. Who am I to judge? I'm saying I'm judging people now as the way they react to me and the way I believe their heart is. And I'll say it in front of anybody to anybody. Sammy is my friend at this point. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not going to hide it. I'm not embarrassed by it. And we don't make money together. That's another thing. Oh, they're making money. We're not making any money together. There's no money to be made with this. I also say this: we don't hang out together. We
Mm-hmm.
don't. It's not there. Um, but I have no problem with him, and an angel shouldn't be offended by that because it has nothing to do with what he did before. Nothing. James, I look at it this way. Look, I did my stuff on the street. I did what I did. And there's certain things that I am not proud of that I did on the street and that I have regrets over, but I did them. Who am I to judge somebody else with that respect when I believe that they're trying to turn it around? And I
Right.
believe that he's not part of that anymore. That's not what he's about. And he's trying to change himself. And whether people agree with that or not, they don't know him like I know
Yeah, I think that what's challenging for Peel because he tries to still appear to be a gangster. I mean, he's got that gangster heart, I guess, meaning that a lot of people think that he still thinks of himself as being a gangster. And I know you kind of made that comment too, but during the Patrick Bet David's interview where you said you're not the underboss anymore. I thought that was one of the best comments from that show that you did with him. I appreciate that you're giving me this interview. Thank you for keeping your word and all that. I mean, and I know that's something about you that you always keep your word. And whenever you make a decision to mentor or help someone out, what are you looking at? Because I guess there's some criticism with, I know that you're friends with Fat Andy's kid, Anthony Ruggiano, and also I believe Gene Borrello.
Well, you have to define what friendship is.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm going to say the same thing as I say with respect to Sammy. I'm not here to
Hmm.
judge what they did. I'm not a gangster anymore. I'm not on the
Right.
street. It doesn't mean that I'm going to go to Anthony and say, Anthony, everything you did, you're justified and it's great. And I support you 100%. I'm not saying that. Ruggiano today and what he's trying to do today, we're friends in that regard. I have no
Yeah.
ill feeling towards him. He never hurt me. He never hurt anybody in my family, nor did
Right.
Sammy in any way. So if he wants to be my friend, okay, I want to be his friend. Okay, there's no ill feelings between us. Gene Borrello, okay, said terrible things about me, horrible
Mm.
things. Go back and look at some of Gene's things. Called me every
Yeah.
name and
Yeah.
everything. I never responded. I'm not going to fight with people on social media. It doesn't make sense. It's stupid. It's
Right.
beneath all of us to do that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Uh, so I'm not going to do it. And and then he comes to me, and I don't say he'd ask for forgiveness. He didn't do that. He says, Michael, this is social media. This is what we do. I said, well, not exactly, but he
Yeah.
kind of made up for it. So okay, fine. All's forgiven. James, listen. My wife will say this. She says, you're too forgiving with people all the time. She's a little
Hmm.
bit more stern than I am. I learned something on the street, and I thank my father for this because it's one of the ways that you last on the street.
Hmm.
My dad said to me, and he taught me from an early age, Michael, remember this. Always be the last person to pass judgment on somebody because one day your turn is going to come and people are going to remember how you judged everybody else. They're going to remember that because on the street, your day does come.
Mm.
And I never forgot that. And I think I have that kind of heart. And
Yes.
I just got criticism for sitting down with the son of Sam when I went to visit with him.
Yeah.
I believe he's sincere. Who am I to hold it against him? He's doing life in prison. The guy is paying the consequences. He's got to deal with it. He's going to stand in front of God one day. And that's how I look at it. So, Gene Borrello, okay, we patched it up. Okay, are we going out to dinner together? Do we hang out together? Does it come? No, it's none of that. But why
Right.
have animosity and why have ill feelings towards somebody when you don't have to? That's how I look at things. And maybe people disagree with that. Maybe they don't understand it. But that's my feelings on it. And James, I'm going to tell you this. I want to put it out there.
Hmm.
I'm not the best Christian. I still make mistakes and I'm still a sinner. I'm
Hmm.
better than I was years ago, I believe, because
Sure.
you can't live in a pattern of sin and claim to be a Christian.
Yeah, I
But I
agree.
will remember this. I will remember this. I think the 10 greatest words ever spoken on this earth and ever will be spoken was spoken by Jesus hanging on the cross when he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
Right.
And he taught us about forgiveness. Now, I also want to say this. I'm not saying if somebody hurt my family that I can immediately be a forgiving person. I will
Right.
try to. I wasn't put in that position. Praise God for that because I don't
Yeah.
ever want to be in that position.
No.
But other than that, I try my best. And what could I say? What could I say? You know what my prayer is? I'll tell you this, James.
Yeah.
Honestly, my prayer is I need prayer on me because I have a tremendous resentment and bad feeling for Joe Biden because I believe he's destroying our country.
Right.
I believe, and I'm not going to get political, but I want to tell you the difference. I
Yeah.
believe that he has blood on his hands with
Hmm.
all this opioid addictions and deaths that are happening. I had one occur in my own home. I believe that this man is causing chaos and destruction throughout the world that's going to be irreparable. And I cannot understand when you're put in a position of trust and people rely on you, they give you their vote, they hope for you to be concerned about their welfare, the welfare of their families, to absolutely violate that is beyond, it's worse for me than any mob guy on the street. And I'm saying it out there. So I prayed to get the resentment out of my heart for this guy. That I'm being honest about.
People ask, is the mob still around? And I always say that the the U.S. government is the biggest mob family out there. And I really believe that because of the stuff that they're doing, our government. It's funny, a lot of the vices that were illegal back in when you were on the street, they're legal now, you know?
Exactly. How many
And
guys
just,
went away for gambling, and now the government is in the business of gambling. The NFL is in the business of gambling.
yeah,
Major League Baseball. But that's life. You can't. That's what
yeah,
happens. But
yeah.
but that's my answer with Borrello. And I mean, these guys are nice with me now. I don't have any problem with that. People, Larry Mazza, how could you be friends with him? I had dinner with
Mhm.
him, his wife, and my wife. Nice guy. I don't know what he did before, and I'm not interested. I'm not his judge. That's just my take on life.
Do you think that Anthony Ruggiano was actually made because he never got his button? Did were you told that he got his button?
I was told by him, I believe. So
Oh, okay.
I have no information beyond that. Look, I just assumed if he said that, and I don't even know I was told by him or I heard him say that. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But look, I knew Fat Andy was a made guy, so what are
Yeah,
you
he was. Yeah.
so okay, if he's not, he's not, and I misspoke. I misspoke. I don't know. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Just
Tell,
one
tell
last.
Angel,
Yeah.
tell Angel if I misspoke, I'm sorry. I don't get everything right all the time.
Yeah, none of us do. Yeah, last question is a book about your father's written, Sandra Petty, that I've had her on, or Lee and I had her on. And I think she's a nice person. I personally like the book. And I know that you've mentioned that she's a nice lady. You've spoken with her and everything. And so there was some information that wasn't correct in the book. And I was hoping you could share your insights on the book. And had you ever considered having her on your show as an interview?
Well, let me tell you two things. I like Sandra Petty a lot. I've sat with her a couple of times. I think she's a really nice lady, nice
Yeah.
woman. I did not read the whole book, but
Mhm.
here's what my problem is, and this could be on my father or whatever. But when after all these discussions that she had with him, my
Mhm.
father told me he never knew, number one, she was writing a book. He
Mhm.
never knew this was going on YouTube, and he was very upset about it.
Oh,
Very
okay.
upset about it. So I said, Dad, what do you want me to do? I mean, you already spoke to her. You sat with her on several occasions. What do you want me to do? So, but again, I don't want to lay this on Sandra that she never was honest with him. I'm not saying that at all. She might have told him, and I know how my dad was at times when he tried to, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and now he'll lay the blame somewhere else. He might have done
Right.
that. He might have done that. But when I heard that, I said, you know what? I'm not going to read the book. I read something in there that I thought could have been written better. I won't dissuade anybody from reading the book. Like I said, I think Sandra's a very nice lady. I'm sure she's a great journalist and she's honest. She wrote what she believed to be true. She did her research. I'll say all of that. But and She didn't ask me to come on the show. I mean, I wouldn't say no if she wanted to. I didn't
Yeah.
to her. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, one of the things that I think that maybe she had mentioned that you're saying wasn't the case was the funeral. There was one that you didn't attend his funeral, which you've said that, but you actually did visit him on multiple occasions, and it wasn't for quote unquote photo op or anything like that, right?
I hear this stuff. These are the things, the personal things that really do upset me. No,
Yeah,
nobody knows what went on between me and my father
exactly.
and me and my family. I visited my dad several times. I visited him with
Hmm.
other people. A lot of people know that. It wasn't for a photo op. What I had told my dad with Patrick Bet David, I said, Dad, somebody's going to want to do your interview. I trust Patrick. He's a good guy. Do it with him. He'll do it the right way. My father agreed and then backed out. And honestly, I think he backed out because he had already spoken to Sandra, but he didn't tell me. That's what I
Yeah.
surmised afterwards, but he didn't say that to me. So, my dad, he was a little shifty at times too. But there was no photo op. I mean, we took pictures because that's my dad, and I want to have pictures with him at 100 years old. I got
Yeah.
pictures with him. people say these things are so ridiculous. I don't
Hmm.
get, and I'm sure you could relate to this. When people are trying to interfere in your personal life with your father, they
Yeah.
don't know our conversations. They don't know what went on.
Right.
Why did we not go to the funeral? First of all, I was asked not to go
Hmm.
uh, by a family member because they said, Michael, we don't want any disturbance there. I said, I get it. I understand it. I'm going to visit my dad privately, which is what I
Yeah.
did. Big scene out of it. And I've been to the cemetery a couple of times too, because that's what I do. My father, my mother, my sister, they're all in the same grave. So I go out of respect because that's what we do as Catholics and Christians. But do I
Yes.
get on YouTube and announce it? Do I go tell the world, hey, I went to visit my father? I mean, it's so ridiculous.
Some things like that just doesn't need to be out on YouTube. But the thing is that I just wanted to address it so that you could
Sure.
refute, some people saying, "Oh, that you didn't visit him," and also your father, he didn't see you as a rat or anything like that, right? For what you did.
Absolutely not. I mean, I
Hmm.
confide in you with this. My dad and I were supposed to go to Andrew Russo's house when I was picking him up and we were going out to Andrew's house because regardless, I loved Andrew Russo and he loved me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Andrew knew the truth, what was going on. He was my captain for a while and I loved Andrew. We had a
Yeah.
great relationship. And but then my father it wasn't feeling well that day, so we couldn't go, and I had to go home, whatever. But my dad didn't look at me that way at all, not at all. We still had our private conversations. Listen, I will say this, and I don't know if I ever said this publicly, but I'll say it, and this is no bad reflection on my dad. It's the truth. Tell me, Michael, this life is full of S.
Hmm.
And he said because a lot of things that are supposed to be one way are not that way. We understood what the life was all about. We got it. We had many, many discussions, even afterwards. Whole thing with Norby Walters. Do you think my father would have talked to me if he thought that I was doing the wrong thing? Do you think he would have sat with me? Of course not. It might have even been dangerous for him.
Yeah.
But everybody knew, James. Everybody knew. So regardless of the talk is from people that don't know, lies, and say things. But the people that had to know did know. And they
Hmm.
knew, like I said, look, I could have done a lot of damage. And, Ed McDonald verified that. Michael was with Fat Tony
Right.
and all that. And I was.
Hmm.
But didn't want to hurt anybody. I wasn't mad at anybody. I didn't. And James? Why did I have to? I got a 10-year sentence.
Hmm.
I was under the old law,
Yeah.
which means I can make parole. If I did 5 years, it would have been a lot. Maybe five and a half, maybe six. I did my prison time the right way. I had nothing to lose at that point. It
Right.
was over. What was I making a deal for? Nothing.
Right. You would have gotten out pretty soon anyway. And then
Yeah.
you got violated mainly because they were upset that you didn't give them information. That's what
100%.
I saw. Yeah.
And because I didn't testify in the Riggy case, they were very upset. They were cursing me out that night. The
Hmm.
U.S. attorney in Newark, that's where the trial was held, was cursing me out. I mean, they were so
Wow.
mad at me. So, I hate to have to bring this up again, but I'm doing
Yeah.
it for your benefit, because you got the absolute truth. I never had the opportunity to do this with anybody because I didn't want to do it with anybody. I was asked, and I said, no, I'm not going to get into that.
Yeah.
But I trust
Thank
you.
you.
And, you got it the way it should be.
No, I appreciate. And just one last question is with your father. What did you think about some of the people that I don't know if you call them clout chasers, but there's some people that would also film when they were with your father. Were there a lot of hanger-ons that were coming around that were always wanting his time or stuff because of who Sonny was? And because it seemed like he obviously would accept people to come in, but there was a guy that said he was friends with one of your sisters and that type of thing, and did a few shows. So, what's the deal with these people that were coming around your father and visiting him?
My dad had that his entire life. Everybody wanted to be around him and mention his name and say this and that and that. I'm not going to mention all the names. There's a
No.
litany of people that did that. He was like, he attracted people like that. And my dad at times, I'll give you a funny story. When he was in
Yeah.
prison, he used to send these guys out to work with me. Every one
Mm-hmm.
of them were just crazy guys. And I used to tell him, Dad, don't send me any more guys, please. They're all nut jobs. They're great in prison, but once they get out, they're nuts. He had that all the time. And I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
I wish you could talk to my brother about that guy because my
Mm-hmm.
brother knew him well. 90% of what these guys say is just not true. It's
Yeah.
just not true. And here's the problem. Michael, you should say that. Why would I say that? I'm going to get on social media. I'm going to give them more of a platform,
Mm-hmm.
come back and say something else. And then we're fighting like two little sissies on social media. It makes no sense.
Right. Doesn't.
You know what happens, James? They all burn out because other than talk about my father or talk about, they have nothing else to talk about. So eventually they burn out. But I can tell
Mm-hmm.
you this, 90% of what they say is not true.
Yeah.
There's another one, and I know who you're talking to. My father was
Yeah.
very upset. He didn't even know what YouTube was. When he
Mm.
heard about it, he got really upset. And I said to him, Dad, what do you want me to do? You let these guys around you, you let them do what they do. You see, I didn't know he had a camera.
Mm.
And in my dad's defense, he's 101 years old.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you this, okay, there's a fallacy out there that somebody reached out to Obama and Obama helped my father get out of jail. My father did every day of his time. He was let out at a statutory release date. We
Right.
couldn't get him a compassionate release. We tried, even at his age. He did every single day of his time. He was let out at 100 years old on a statutory release date. Nobody did him any favors, me or anybody else.
Mm.
That's when he was supposed to be released.
Yeah, no, and that's definitely true because based on the sentence, he spent the whole time that he had to. He didn't get anything that was. He spent what 80, 90% of the sentence,
Exactly.
and it was unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, was there anything else that you wanted to say to the audience? I mean, that was the questions I had. I'm just very thankful that you were so transparent and honest, and you're willing to come in and speak with me. It means a lot.
No, James, look, I appreciate what you're doing. I know you're honest, and I like the fact that you do your research and you
Thank
investigate
you.
and you give people a fair shot, either way. And I appreciate the same with me. I mean, if you found something that I was not on the level or that I was mistaken and you held me to it, I have no problem with that. I have no problem with anybody doing that,
Right.
and neither should anybody else. Because listen, if we're on YouTube, we open ourselves up. We understand with the platform. We understand there's people going to like us and people that are not going to like us. So it
Right.
comes with the territory. We get it. But I appreciate when somebody like you, comes forward, does the work, and gives everybody a fair shot either way. That's all you ask for. And
Yeah.
so I appreciate that. And I told you anytime that I could be supportive of you, I would do it.
Thank
And
you.
and I will. And I will. And again, I say this to everybody out there. Uh,
Hmm.
it's nice when somebody is just telling the truth. That's all
Yes.
it's nice.
Yeah. No, it really is. And so, just thank you again, Michael. Just tell your wife hello for me, and
Oh,
I know God's going to continue to work in your life. So just keep on the good work.
well, I will. And I just do want to say something near the end
Yeah.
because I did, I had a passport issue. They took my passport. I had to cancel my UK tour. Finally, I got my passport back. We got that resolved. And I will be going to the UK in May. We're doing a 2-week tour there. I'm very excited about it. Last
Okay.
tour we did was great. And we'll be going back. And then I'll be going to Monaco and Dubai and various places around the country. So I hope to meet a lot of people. These events are always great. People are always wonderful and look forward to that. And, I'm in the pizza business and
Yes.
we have something that we're going to reveal within the next couple of, I would say the next couple of weeks. That's going to be very, very exciting. And
Yes.
I'll let you in on it when it happens. And also
Yes.
in the wine business. And I
Hmm.
want to thank everybody that's been so supportive. We're now in 9 states. we're in the UK, we're in Australia, so we hope to be a global brand pretty soon. But people are loving it, and it's a lot of hard work and effort that goes into it, but it's paying off. I got a
And you're
great.
all, yeah, you're also, you do a show with Chaz Palminteri, right?
Yes, I love Chaz. We do the Wise and the Wise Guy together, and he's a great guy, really great
Yeah.
guy. And we got very close, and my wife and him and my wife are very close. So just wonderful people, great, great people. So we got a
Well, you're
lot
staying busy.
staying busy, and we got a lot coming up.
Well, it was such a pleasure, Michael, and hopefully we can do this again one day.
Absolutely. You got something that you want to talk about, you just let me know, and we'll make the time.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. God bless,
All
my
right.
friend.
God bless you.